Okay, so welcome to episode 6 of Money. We haven't done an episode in a couple of weeks, so we have a little catching up to do, but we also have something exciting we're going to talk about today because Jodie Lynn and I have been kind of chatting in the background about some of the things that we talk about here on the podcast, but also stuff we talk about outside the podcast. And I proposed an idea to her. I floated it very briefly on the LA Today podcast. I can't remember if I said it here or not, but it was the idea of writing a book that addresses what you and I, Jody Lynn, have in mind for where we think the monetary system could go if things start to fall apart. And maybe even if they don't start to fall apart. I think it could work either way.
Hmm.
But the title, the working title I came up with, and of course this is subject to change because this is just the starting point, but the working title I came up with was New Money, New Wealth, and subtitled The Value of Giving. And as soon as I said that to you last week, or last time I talked to you, I should say, your eyes lit up. I don't know if you knew that, but your eyes absolutely lit up the last time that I brought this up to you. Do you remember what your reaction was that day?
Um, well, I think it's all along the lines of, that original channel download that I got. It's in 2018, I think it was 2019, I got a download that one day, oh, hopefully I can talk about this. Might be, a little bit conspiracy theory. I'm gonna do it anyway.
I think we can handle it.
I think we can handle it. Well, if you guys didn't know, I'm a channeler, and all that that means is that I can have a fluent conversation with the other side. I typically do not have conversations with people who have passed on. This is usually like higher selves, ascended masters, angels, guides of that kind. And I've been doing this for a long time. But
By
back
the way, she's really good at it. We've done it on the other podcast. It's really cool to watch. Just saying.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so much fun, and I've taken time to cultivate that art or that practice and get good at it. And in 2018 or 2019, that's when I started to channel, I believe it was 2018. That's when I started to channel the philosophy of abundance consciousness that I created the More program around. So that was my coaching program that I had going for several years. Anyway, all of the philosophies came from these downloads. So they weren't me. Even the book that I wrote, you can read it and it doesn't sound like me. It came from a completely different place. And so one of the things that really rocked me at that time was I got this very specific download that we wouldn't have money in the future. But everything would be okay, that we would have everything that we want, everything that we need, we'd be taken care of, just like we see in nature, where there's this, automatic abundance that, the na nature provides all the things. And I couldn't quantify it. And the first person I told, they were like, that kind of sounds like socialism or communism. And that kind of stopped me in my tracks because I was like, okay, what does socialism mean exactly? What does communism mean exactly? And is that where the download was going? And the frequency of both of those things did not align with the frequency of what I felt when the download came through. But I could never quantify what that meant. And I knew that it had something to do with energy. That was what a lot of the More program was about, was, our energy in relation to the world at large and around us, and that frequency that we're interacting with all the time, and creation itself. But I couldn't quantify, how do we get rid of the almighty dollar? And like, how do you have how do you go from having no transactions to, or having transactions and everything being, logged in a certain way, to no transactions? Like, everybody I talked to about it at the time was like, you can't have that because it costs money to do this and that. And so eventually I just put the idea or the download into kind of like a tiny little box. And I'm like, okay, one day I will understand. And so when my face lit up with that title, it was a recognition within my entire system of, we're getting closer. We're getting closer to understanding what this download actually meant. And not only understanding of but actually conceptualizing it and bringing it to life. That's what it felt like.
I love that. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I want to emphasize this is not something that you and I have developed to any extent. I mean, we're in the very initial stages of this, but it does flow out of conversations we've had over the last few years.
Yeah.
And it also flows out of my own experience and out of your own experience. You have a tremendous experience as a financial planner. You have a
Mhm.
lot of direct, hands-on, feet, on the ground, all that kind of stuff with real people, real clients, dealing with real financial issues and so forth. Mine's a little bit more theoretical in that I've been studying this stuff pretty much since I was in my 20s,
Mhm.
studying the monetary systems, studying how all this stuff works, how capitalism works, what was wrong with socialism, what was wrong with communism, why didn't that work? All these different issues. God, I've gone after all of them at one time or another. You live long enough, you finally get a time to do that.
That's right. And well, you kind of have to be interested in it because it's
Yeah.
somewhat a dry read.
I think I would take the word somewhat out, but yes, I would agree with you.
Yes. And it's, you know what, just as an aside, it was astonishing to me because I didn't start researching those things at the beginning of my financial career. I've been doing
Hmm,
this for 16 years and I understood, I mean, I went through training and schooling and, got licensed and all of that stuff to be in the industry that I'm in. Everybody's got to, jump through the hoops to get there. But the thing is that I could really explain and understood the products inside of financial services and how they work and how to get them working for you,
which is huge.
which is huge.
Hmm.
But, in 2019, somewhere in there, that's when I started to take 2020, when I started to take a turn and ask the question of like, how does monetary policy and macro and microeconomics flow into this conversation? It was born out of a question my dad asked me that I really had no idea what the answer was. And the question was, how does currency work in terms of evaluation? Like, why is the Canadian dollar always behind the US dollar? I don't understand. Why does that, how does this work? And I said, that's a really great question. What I found, I mean, I found a lot of answers looking and researching into all of that. I poured into it, pretty much halted my life just so I could research because I'm just that way. I want to learn. But what's crazy is that most financial professionals don't understand the monetary system or fiscal
True.
policy or microeconomics or macroeconomics, the entire picture outside of this is the product and this is how you sell it, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
but it's true. It's 100% true. It doesn't make them any less effective or
No,
knowledgeable about what they do because they
that's
are
right.
knowledgeable and they are effective. It just means they
Yeah,
don't have the full picture.
they don't have the full picture. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, and that's a big
absolutely.
deal. And I love that your father asked that question. I have for years, I wish more people would ask that question because that's
Yeah,
an excellent question. And as you know, it gets to the heart of how what they call a fiat monetary system works, which is
yeah.
what we have worldwide. The entire world is governed by fiat monetary systems. And if you want to know what the quick answer is, ladies and gentlemen, the quick answer is it's intentional. It's planned this way. That's precisely how it's planned.
Yep. Yeah, my dad didn't like that answer.
I don't blame him. Not many people do.
Yeah. Yeah. He was like, what? That doesn't make sense. There was a lot of things that I found that were alarming. And I
Mm.
think I can't remember which president it was in the United States, but I think he said something to the effect of if tomorrow morning people woke up and understand the monetary system, there would be the biggest revolt mankind has ever seen.
I do recall. I'm trying to remember who it was who said that. I think it may have been Eisenhower, but I'm not 100% sure of that.
Yeah. I can't
I'm not
remember.
100% sure. But you're right. There was a president who said that. Yeah,
Mhm.
I got to go look that one up now. Like, who was that?
And it's true. I felt like that. Like, what am I doing in this
Mm,
industry? This is crazy. And
yeah.
to think that most people don't even have the broad knowledge of what kind of investment or what investments are, you know.
I'm thinking it might have been Truman. Well, that doesn't matter. Anyway, the point is, it's a very good point, and it's a very good question to raise. And it's the question that it's such a challenging question for people to answer that most people give up for good reason. I mean, it's hard to find out if you don't know how to find the answer. That's a hard answer to find, even with
Yes.
the modern tools that we have. Looking it up on Google or through an AI or something, it's still hard to get a straight answer out of it because there are so many moving pieces, so many moving parts. And
Mhm.
until you get a grasp of what all those parts are and how they interact, It's hard to paint a picture that makes any sense. That's literally why there are so many different philosophies about it, because everybody has a different viewpoint. Everybody has a different
Hmm.
perspective. Um, and I'll throw in one other thing too. This is not a complete answer at all, but my broad answer to why communism and socialism don't work comes down to one thing. They try to force their way. And they
Mm,
try to force their way in the worst way possible because they don't have a replacement for that transaction thing. More precisely, they don't have a way to replace pricing.
pricing.
Yeah. Pricing is their Achilles heel. So there's no way that they can possibly work. Plus, it doesn't help that they have, the history of the Soviet Union behind them and various other socialist dictators, and that doesn't help either. That creates a lot of negative angst. But the basic reason they don't work is because they don't have a pricing mechanism and they try to use force to get their way. Those are two really good ways to lose.
Hmm. 100%. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it would work, right? All you have to do is you can be the dictator. You can say, I'm going to dictate, here's how the world's going to work. But even dictators find that they don't have as much power as they thought they did. It's
That's right.
astonishing. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
probably a good thing too.
Oh, I would say so, yes.
Yes.
But continuing with the idea of the book that we're kind of thinking about and in the early stages of talking about like how we're going to go about writing it, constructing it, putting it together and so forth. Let me just lay out for our audience what I laid out for you, because I had that private conversation with you, but we haven't talked about it here on the show. So the gist of the idea has like two or three main pieces to it. One main piece has to do with the word that we just identified, the word value, because
Mhm.
today value is very strongly associated with the monetary system, with capitalism as we know it, with how the dollar, whether American dollar, Canadian dollar, or other units of currency around the world, they're used to price things, and the pricing becomes our way of valuing things.
Mhm.
It's important to remember this is the key thing that got me on the track of coming up with the title for this book. It's important to remember there's more than one way of valuing things. And in fact, all of us have our own value systems that are not necessarily in alignment with the monetary value system.
Mhm.
So the monetary value system, it's a legitimate valuing system. There's no such thing as an illegitimate valuing system. I want to lay that out there first and foremost. And for anyone who's looking for me to either come down hard on socialism or to come hard down on capitalism or anything like that, sorry, time to find a new podcast. It's not going to happen here because there's nothing specifically morally wrong with any of them. Or you can put it another way, there's something morally wrong with all of them. But either way, you're not making yourself any more educated by applying the word moral to it. So let's take moral out of it and just say there are different value systems. There are different ways of valuing things. And each
Mhm.
one of them has strengths and each one of them has weaknesses.
Mhm.
So the question isn't whether or not we can have a different value system. The question really becomes which one are we going to choose? And is it one that we all have to agree on? That's a big one
Mhm.
for people. That
Mhm.
people buy into the idea that we all have to agree on the same value system. What if that weren't true?
Mhm.
What if
Well,
you didn't have to have everybody buying into the same value system and yet still have a way to trade goods and services?
yes. Well, and I think that's a part of the linchpin here and something that I've been struggling with, and a lot of people struggle with. We hear this a lot in the spiritual community
Hmm.
after awakening, and you see all this corruption and, whatever you want to opt out of the matrix or opt out of
Yeah.
the system. We hear this a lot in conversations
Oh,
in
yeah.
the spiritual world. But one of the things that people fundamentally struggle with is you can't, not can't. Um, we haven't created, or there hasn't been another way that's been created to operate alongside the current monetary system. And I think people will automatically say, as they're hearing this, well, but what about crypto?
Yes.
Uh,
We should,
well,
well, let's address that. Let's answer the question. What about crypto?
I mean, I come back to what you say every time about Bitcoin. They don't accept it as payment.
Yeah, it's not money.
It's not money.
It's
So
sold as money, but it's not
it,
money.
it's sold as money, and that is kind of my fear when I take a look at everything that I now understand about the financial system, the monetary system, and all of that. The reason why I don't like the fiat currency is because of the obvious. It's a piece of paper, and there is nothing a value behind it except for our belief in the government's word that it's worth something. Well, crypto's the same, essentially, in the way that, well, what makes it valuable? Well, there's only so many out there. Well, is that really true? That's what they say. Sure. Okay. But it's our belief. There is no actual physical thing propping it up saying that this is valuable. And maybe that just brings me to another question. Maybe we don't need a physical thing. But when we had a physical thing like gold, it kept us more honest, or that's my perception of things, because you could only lend so much, you could only do so much because there's only so much gold, physical gold sitting there. So there was guardrails. Whereas with this current monetary system, they just press the panic print button and more shows up.
Well, we could do probably 20 shows on gold as a monetary system. And is it really true that it's a secure system, that's a more reliable system? Because I could make the argument that it's not. But nevertheless, there's going to be a lot of different viewpoints on it.
Oh,
By the
for
way, I could
sure.
argue either way. I could make the presentation that it is reliable and safe, and I could also make the presentation that it's not. And I could be equally convincing on both of them.
100%. Even the scarcity side of things, like, do we really believe that the gold that we can see or that we have accounted for is all of it? I know that's not the truth with diamonds. There's vaults of diamonds out there, and they're
Oh, massive numbers.
specifically suppressing that number so that the diamond continues to hold value. Whereas if
Yes.
we really knew the truth, it'd probably be as cheap as lab created diamonds.
Oh yeah, it's it's ridiculous how many diamonds there are, but we'll leave that one for another day too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this idea of scarcity because I'm glad you brought it up. It is at the core of modern monetary systems. It is at the core of modern capitalism, actually of historic capitalism as well. The idea of scarcity is baked in. In fact, it's baked in to macroeconomics. It's baked into microeconomics. It's virtually baked into almost every economic philosophy or system or theory that you can think of. It's just baked in there. And the reason I want to bring it up is I want to pose a question. What if it's not true? What if scarcity is not as important as all these systems say it is?
I
And the
don't think
reason I
it.
say that, there are a few things. Well, first of all, you and I share a spiritual belief about, we live in an abundant universe.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of what got me onto the track in the first place. Well, if we live in an abundant universe, what's all this scarcity stuff all about? So that's where it kind of started for me. But beyond that, why do we have to start with that? Well, we start with that because that's the way pricing works. Pricing is based on how scarce is something, how rare is it? People who make minimum wage, that's because there are so many people who can do the same job without any big deal. It's not a problem. People who are paid high amounts, that's because they're doing something that very few people can do. It takes a high skill set to do those particular kinds of jobs. That's the way that kind of works. Same thing is true with things you can buy and sell. How much land is there on the ocean? Well, there is some, but it's a finite amount. So it's going to be more expensive to buy land on the shoreline. That's just the way it's going to work.
Yeah.
That's where this whole idea of scarcity is built in. So the question that came to my mind is, well, if we live in an abundant universe, do we need to be governed by scarcity?
Mm.
And the conclusion I came to is no, we do that by choice for the exact same reason that you mentioned earlier, which is we assume that that is what's behind it all, that the scarcity is behind it all. And because we make that assumption, the thing that's behind it all is scarcity. It's the assumption that makes the truth.
And I don't even think it's really conscious
No.
because I also connect scarcity to that record of transaction. So the download that I had was that it was that current money will not be the way that we have it today. It will be an energy exchange between
Mhm.
people. And then the next question I came to in my maybe logical, not so logical brain was like, how do you track that? And that's where I was stopped dead for, the last 7 years of like, I don't know how you track that. How do you track energetic exchange? Like, I love you, so I did this, or like this or that or whatever. After we started talking about the new money, new wealth, the value of giving the book, as well as another question that I had downloaded. This is probably a couple months ago now, is what if the financial system slash currency was built from consciousness? And what I realized was that record of transaction comes from scarcity
Yes.
because it's I need to have those tallies on my stick because that's how they used to do money before was a stick that had tallies on it,
Mhm.
literally. But I need to have the tallies on my stick to prove that I'm going to get something back. That is coming from the deepest parts of scarcity, of not being taken care of or provided for in the world. And I'm not saying that it's not relevant or easy to feel those things. I think that that's a societal structure that we've priced in. We've built in to this entire thing. But
Well, it's also understandable. I mean, you look
of
back,
course,
1,000 years, 2,000 years, subsistence living was everywhere. That's just basically what everybody did. So everybody lived in fear.
yeah,
And you live in enough fear like that, you're going to think in terms of scarcity pretty quickly. It's not going to take long.
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
Yeah. And and
100%.
and I can just hear somebody saying, yeah, well, you can make you can play my games with whether or not there's a scarcity of shoreline property all you want to, but there's still a scarcity of shoreline property. There's only so much of it.
Hmm.
And I get where they're coming from on that. I think we both do. First of all, there is a mindset, but there's also some reality to it. Here's the part that I would recommend that they consider as a way perhaps to start climbing out of that hole, and that is how many people actually want to live on the shoreline?
Hmm.
Interestingly enough, not that many, it turns
Hmm.
out. It's kind of a
Right?
surprise. I mean, there are quite a few who do,
Hmm.
but if you survey the overall population, there aren't many people who actually want to live on the shoreline.
Hmm. Also, how many vacant islands are there?
There happen to be a few of them. Yeah.
Yes. What I mean, that's an entire island that you could buy, that
Hmm.
you could have house by house by house. So you could
Oh,
have
yeah.
that. When I always think about scarcity, the one of the downloads that I had was money in relation to water. So
Mm.
constantly thinking, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough money. But I've never heard anyone say, what if we run out of water? But the
Yeah, right.
reality is that, what, 1% of our drinking water in the world is like 1% is available to us or something. Like there's a very small, scarce amount of drinking water that's out there. Yet every time somebody turns on their tap, most people have no idea where that water came from, nor while they had it full blast and open and they're chopping vegetables over here, did they worry that the tap would run dry. I mean, maybe the generations before us would have worried about that, but not today. It's not something we think about. And it is relatively more scarce than money. So I think a lot of it has to do with how we perceive the conversation.
And there are also, to be fair, there are people today who are warning that that's going to be the next great shortage. Water is going to be the next great shortage. It's going to be global. It's going
Mhm.
to wreak havoc with global economies and so forth. A lot of people have bought into that way of thinking. And
Yep.
my reaction to their fear is, yeah, you're right. You have that fear, you're guaranteed it's going to happen. I mean, I can promise that. Now, that's the part that people start thinking I'm a little bit wacky because, well, no, thoughts don't become things. Oh, yeah, they do actually, but that's another podcast that I did for 14 years. Um, so I won't get into an argument about that with people, but I will suggest to them that it's a good time to look at other perspectives because when you start looking at other perspectives, that's when you start to realize that the worldview you have is a perfectly legitimate worldview, but it's not the only one. And there are other
Hmm.
ways of understanding what goes on in the world than just that one worldview. And
Hmm.
that's when you start getting true wisdom, actually.
Absolutely. And I think something that I've always tried to do, and I tried to coach people to do, is to be gentle with themselves and um, amenable or fluid with their perspective. Because the thing is that our perspective is the thing that keeps us stuck, and
Right.
our perspective is the thing that makes us feel like shit.
And it's also the thing that makes us free and safe and successful. It's
Well,
both.
it's both. So, and both exist at the same time. Newton's law of nothing can be created nor destroyed, it all lives here. So the perspective of we're running out of money or running out of water or whatever, and money is abundant and water is abundant, and I have everything that I need, they live both here in this moment in time.
Mhm.
And we get to choose. We get to choose what we're going to see more of or what we're going to see less of. And that takes time to to change your perspective, to teach your brain to go looking for the things that you want versus the things that you're afraid of. But it's possible. This is a supercomputer that we have access to, and the universe is filled with billions of possibilities. So don't lock yourself into one perspective, one possibility that makes you feel like garbage or afraid of what's going to happen in the world. Open the door and try and see where other people have a different perspective and how you could turn in that direction at least and start to see it for yourself.
Now, toward that goal, I'm also going to kind of take us into into the rabbit's hole. We do this a lot, rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Rabbit's holes are fun. But this is a particularly good rabbit's hole because it's my approach that I've taken to help people who are struggling with seeing a different perspective, particularly where money is concerned, because
Mhm.
most of us have very strong perspectives about money, how money supplies work, how economics work, and so forth, drawn directly from our own experience, indirectly from what other people have told us, to some extent, you know, driven by what we've been propagandized on, because we've all received propaganda that has been incorporated into our thought processes. And that combination makes us, among other things, fear that, there's no way out. There's nothing we can do about it. How can we possibly have, you made reference earlier, how can you possibly have something side by side with capitalism? I mean, that doesn't even make sense on the surface. Well, I said to myself, well, what if we could create a way to make something side by side? That would make it easier for people to handle the idea that you could have multiple value systems within the same economy, let alone within the same society, but within
Mhm.
the same economy. You could actually have, in a sense, you could have two economies within the same economy. You could have multiple economies within in the same economy. And in fact, their economists will tell you that happens all the time anyway. But I wanted to find a nice, easy way for people to handle that mentally.
Yeah.
So I started with a concept that it's very central to the way the corporate code is written here in the U.S., but it also applies in virtually every country around the world now. There's a form of corporation called a nonprofit corporation. It has different names in different countries, but basically what it amounts to is it's a way for usually a charity to be organized so that they don't have to be paying taxes, or they can pay reduced taxes. They can collect money, they can disperse it, and the overall theme is that any profits made by the company are not going to be distributed to shareholders. They're going to be used instead in pursuant of whatever the goals of the organization are. So if the organization is the Red Cross, the American Red Cross is a nonprofit organization, and the American Red Cross, any so-called profits that they make, their profits, so-called, they're really just redirected into doing Red Cross activities. Go around and, if you go to a war zone, provide medical care, go to an impoverished city, provide medical care, all the different things that they do. If in an emergency, there's a hurricane, go provide medical care in a hurricane, all that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So that's the basic idea, nonprofit organization. Well, in America, anyway, I won't try to address all the world because there are over 150 countries in the world and I can't address them all. But here in the United States, a nonprofit organization can pretty much be built on anything that you want to do with it. I mean, there are certain limitations, but you can build a nonprofit on almost anything. Not all of them are going to be tax-free. That's a special category of nonprofit. You can apply tax-free to a large number of nonprofit situations. Um, but the key concept here is that you can build a nonprofit that does almost anything you want to do within the nonprofit. So I thought to myself, what if we could create an economy that had a different value system from the monetary system,
Mm-hmm.
and that economy worked only within the structure of a nonprofit corporation?
Mm-hmm.
And what if that nonprofit corporation were to get its money not primarily through donation, but rather through being capitalistic? In other words, it would operate externally in the broader economy as an investor, essentially. That's, who are the people who make the most money? They're the investors. Investors make the most money in the economy. They have a lot of different labels, but they're all basically investors. Well, why not have a nonprofit that's an investor, and then they take their profits and they invest them into, that's what a nonprofit does, invest them into the nonprofit to basically provide sustenance and opportunities for growth of the economy that's being built within the nonprofit organization. So basically, I've structured a way to have a different economy inside from the one that's outside. They both
Mm.
exist in the same society, but two different. So there's your side by side. On the
Yep.
one hand, you have the regular monetary system. On the other hand, you have this second system. That call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it the shit system. I don't care what you call it, but it's a second system with a second way of doing things.
Hmm.
That that's a foundational point right there.
Yeah.
There is a way to do a side by side, and there you can do lots of different kinds of side by side this way. Now, you and I are going to explore a particular one, but heck, anybody who's got any kind of idea about an alternative system they want to do, you don't have to pass a law. You just set up a nonprofit organization. You've set up a separate society within the society.
Hmm. Exactly. So you can give out profits however your value system has been organized,
Yeah.
So it's not, you're getting paid for an hour worth of work anymore. You're getting paid for whatever the value system is.
And that value system, hopefully, if you've done a good job, is laid out in the way your nonprofit corporation is incorporated because you have corporation papers, right? You have a structure, you have maybe a board of directors, you have this whole thing laid out. This is how our organization is going to work.
Yeah,
And that's where you spell out what your value system is.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
So
It's
now
fun.
we have a
Place.
model we can work with.
Yeah.
It's not fleshed out. We haven't filled in all the details yet, but now we have a structure that we can work with.
Yeah.
So let's explore, what do we want our value system to look like? Now, I proposed in my subtitle for the book that the value system is based on the value of giving. Let's talk about giving for a little bit.
Hmm.
This comes out of conversations you and I have had where we basically divide the world into givers and takers. By the way, there's a favorite joke of mine about dividing the world into two types. The joke goes like this: there are two kinds of people in the world. Who divide the world into two kinds of people, and those who do not.
So we're going to be the people that divide in two.
We
Okay.
are. We're going to divide the world into two kinds of people.
Yep.
So, all right, let's talk about what kind of value we would want to have. Givers and takers is the idea here.
Hmm.
And first thing I want to point out is that everybody is both a giver and a taker.
Hmm.
There are very few people who are pure givers, very few people who are pure takers, because both of them don't last very long.
Hmm. That's right. Well, you can't. I mean, well, I think if you're just giving all the time, you're going to burn out and then become angry and whatever. And
Well,
then,
plus, if you're giving all the time, that means you're never taking anything. So you aren't eating any food. You have no
hmm,
place to live. You have no place to sleep. You have no medication. You have no friends. You have nothing because you always give everything.
yeah, you always
You,
give everything.
you're going to be lucky to live the week.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean, honestly,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
if you're 100% a taker, you have the exact same problem
Yeah.
because if you're always going to take and you're never going to give, well, first of all, you're going to get arrested because that's called theft.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So where's that going to lead you to? Well, nowhere good that I know of.
Hmm.
And somewhere along the line, you're going to have to give something if you want to have any kind of happiness in your life. Otherwise, you're just going to be in misery for the rest of your life, which, by the way, there are some people who live that way.
Yeah.
There are actually people who are pure takers more than there are people who are pure givers. There aren't many, but
Yeah.
there are a few who are like that. They,
Hmm.
they can last longer, but they live a horrible life, and it's usually a short life.
Yeah.
Mercifully so.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah. Well, and I think the conversation about giving um is sometimes connected to scarcity about, over giving or, not feeling valued and, how does that exchange work? And what does giving even mean? What does it look like and how does it feel? There's got to be this balance at certain points. I'm not saying every transaction, but there's got to be a balance of the give and take.
Yeah, I would say that's absolutely the truth, the accurate truth. I also propose the idea that on balance, it's better to be slightly more of a giver than a taker.
Totally. Yep.
Because if you're
Absolutely.
slightly, and the reason, there's a very strong economic reason why I want this idea in place. The economic reason is, in my mind, the difference between the giving and the taking. It's a small difference. That small difference in this new value system we're talking about, that is profit. The
Mm.
new way of thinking about profit. The more if you give a little bit more, you create a more profitable economy.
Hmm. I love it. I think it's awesome. I think it's a different way to look at it, being paid, be doing a job, whatever. I think a lot of our society just goes into things because of the paycheck they think they'll get, or the hours they think they're going to have, or, well, I don't have a lot of education, or I have this specific education, so this is all that I can give or do in that way. And they just pick something because of what society has told them rather than really going with their heart and what would I love to give to the world? Like, what am I passionate about? What lights me up? And when you start to do those kinds of things, giving feels completely different from that space.
And let me just take a moment to compare this idea of value and of profit to the current system. And I'm
Hmm.
going to do it in a way that perhaps surprises some people. I'm going to take us into a restaurant, any restaurant, because we all pretty much have the same kind of experiences when we go into restaurants, whether it's a high
Yeah.
end, low end, doesn't matter. But we have a server, right? Someone who's serving us dinner. That
Mhm.
server is making pretty much minimum wage and a little bit more with tips. And if
Hmm.
they're in a country where tipping is not a thing, then they got a different structure. So I'll leave that aside for another day. But here in the U.S. anyway, they're earning a very small amount of pay, and then they're earning tips. Tips are basically the majority of their income.
Yeah.
And depending on what kind of restaurant they're at, if it's a high-end restaurant, they can probably make decent money. If they're at a low-end restaurant, it's basically minimum wage or worse. It's it's
Hmm.
it's pretty minimal. Now, the question that I want to pose is, how much giving are they doing? At that moment in time, they're
Server?
giving a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of giving going on there. And I
Yeah.
would propose the idea that giving is valuable,
Totally. Yeah.
especially for those of us who are sitting at the table being served. Because
Absolutely.
now we're not the
Sure.
ones having to serve dinner. We're not having to cook it. We're actually having it presented to us. It's all ready for us to eat. We don't have to do anything other than pay the bill after. We're like,
Hmm.
damn, this is good stuff.
And they bring the little machine to your table, so you don't even have to get up anymore.
That's right.
No, you're weighted on hand and foot.
But my point is that's valuable.
Hmm.
It's something that is easily done by large numbers of people, so the financial system doesn't value it very highly.
Hmm.
But I personally value it very highly. I don't know about you, but my practice is whenever I go out to dinner, I pay at least a 25% tip,
Yeah,
25 or higher. And the reason I do that is I really value what they're doing. Like, this is great. Thank you for doing that. You're feeding me dinner. I love this. This is
yeah.
wonderful. That's my way of saying thank you to them.
I like tipping. I usually 21% is my number. I don't know.
Okay.
No, but 21%. That's always what I give when I give a tip, which is all the time. But the only time that it makes me mad is this one scenario. Actually, I was coming back from Texas, and I think I was in the Houston airport, and we went to this like I don't know faux place, Vietnamese restaurant. I don't know. It was in the airport. Anyway, we're in the restaurant, and I'm really excited to try this stuff.
Mhm.
And I don't really know what everything is on the menu and whatever. I get to the table, sit down, and it's an app on
Oh,
some sort of computer screen.
yeah.
Like you gotta use the app on your phone. So one,
Mm.
you gotta have a phone to be able to do it. I did, but fine, whatever. You scan the QR code, you look through their menu. So I'm like lost when it comes to the menu. Am I gonna get what I want? Am I not gonna get what I want? Because I don't even really know what's good here. Whatever. You order everything through the app, you pay through everything through the app, and then some person came and just dropped it off at your table. And I was like, I don't like this.
Mm.
I feel like I should give a giant tip when like there wasn't the service there that I mean, I wanted a lemon with my water. There's no one to ask because there's nobody in the actual restaurant except for the back staff that eventually comes out to give you your food. Like,
Mm.
I did not like that process whatsoever. I want to talk to a human. Well, I mean, so that was really the only time I didn't, tip 21%. I tip
Well,
still,
I also
but
suspect you won't go back to that
I
restaurant.
won't. I'll never go back to that restaurant because I like to be able to ask questions and get their opinion on, okay, what's good here? Like if I want something that's spicy, what's the best thing that's spicy or not spicy or whatever, right? I'm not really a picky eater, but sometimes you just can't tell with the menu. Like I like noodles and stuff. So which one has that? I have no idea. I like spicy things, so I like to add sriracha or, like chili oil or whatever to my meal. Nope, didn't get the option. Couldn't ask a question. Have no idea what I just ordered. Hopefully it's good. You
Yeah.
know, it's just interesting. So,
Well, it's also a really good example of how a value system can be a mismatch for the monetary value system.
yep,
Because that was a corporation, I imagine, that was behind that. They probably had a lot of people, especially in an airport. That's a high demand place,
yep,
so they probably had a lot of sales going on there. I wouldn't give 2 cents for their return rate. I don't think that, people who are flying regularly are going to drop into that restaurant. They
no,
got their first experience, and if everything else is closed, they might go there. But if there's any other option, they're probably going to go to the other option because who likes that experience?
no,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, it was pretty dead in there.
So the value system that you and I are talking about already has identified one particular instance where I don't really like that one. I don't want to go there. And most people aren't going to want to go there. In other
Mm,
words, where our new value system is valuing that one very low.
yes. Well, and I think the underlying value for me is the I don't even know how to put it. I was going to say attention, customer service, like that guidance you get from somebody who's been there before. And you can apply this to a lot of different things. I mean, being a financial advisor is one of them. That's one of the things that is predicted to be cut with AI. I'm not afraid because I just think that everything happens for a reason and that it always works out for the best. So it's just going to work out for the best for me, for my colleagues, for my clients, whatever. And I also think about what I want and what the clients who are under, my guidance, what they want. They want someone to talk to when shit hits the fan.
Hmm.
Somebody that can guide them along and say, go left, go right, whatever. This is not telling them what to do, but like, okay, this is what I see moving forward. And this is where the, bear traps are going to be. And this is how we work around them if you want to work around them. Or you can take this path. There's multiple paths. And the restaurant is no different. Like showing me your menu. Okay, great. This is the first time that I've ever been here. I don't want to just eat. I want to have an experience of good food. I want to enjoy what I'm eating. I want to pick the best thing. And especially if you're in a different place than you normally are, like going to Texas or, going anywhere really on vacation, I want to talk to somebody. I want their life story. I want to engage with them and have a conversation. That I value, having that human interaction with somebody. That's a big value.
So you're touching on another one that I want to bring out as a major point of this new system we're talking about. I think a huge part of our new value system that we're laying out for this book is the value of human connection.
Yes.
And you know as well as I do, I'm a big AI advocate. I mean, I've
Yes.
built a whole thing about I'm based on AI. I love AI.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to get to the point eventually where we have great relationships with AI, but I don't think that's ever going to change the human connection. The human connection is still going to be a massive desire for as far in the future as I can possibly imagine. That's not going away. If anything, it's going to get bigger,
Yeah.
particularly over the next 10 years. It's going to get much, much bigger. And it's already showing signs of that. I mean, we see that a lot more often than we did, say, 10, 15 years ago, right? We,
Yeah.
we see more and more signs of people. We saw it during the pandemic. What
Yeah.
happened? People were locked into their homes. They couldn't go anywhere. And all the stuff that you found on social media was about different ways that people found to connect with each other. I mean,
Yeah.
the creativity was off the charts.
Yes. The dances, the Zoom meetings, like it's hard to believe that wasn't life before,
Mm.
you know,
But look
being
what
so
came out of it,
connected. I have
right?
best friends like you, who I mean, I've never met you, Walt, in
Not in person,
human
no.
flesh. Yeah,
Yeah.
like It's
We're looking
crazy.
forward to it. That's going to be fun that day, but
Yes, you will. You'll see how short I really am.
you'll see how tall I really am.
Exactly. It'll be amazing. But it's crazy that what we've been doing this for the last 5 years,
Mm,
I think, right? Like five
yeah.
years. We've become super good friends. Walt
Yep.
knows pretty much everything about me, like all the ups and downs that I've been through over the last, 5 years. He knows intensely and I of his life.
Vice versa. Yeah.
And we met online,
Yep.
and we have a relationship through forums like this.
Yeah.
And you're not the only friend. I mean, I have another friend who lives in
Right.
Texas. The reason why I went to Texas for a visit. I had never met her either. Became friends, through different friends on the internet and had Zoom meetings. Like that's how we connect on a weekly basis is through Zoom. And then once a year we get to see each other. We finally met, a couple of years ago, but it's crazy.
Yeah. That human connection thing is not going away. It's going to be around for a long time. And I think it's really important to include it in an economic value system.
Mhm.
In fact, I would make the argument that one of the reasons why people struggle so much with the monetary system is because they don't recognize that it can be connected to a human connection system.
Yeah. They don't see how it's possible.
Right.
And I think it might be even more broad than human connection and connection, like conscious connection. Because
Mm,
I think about like food. Food is something that we are so disconnected from. Our food system, how it works, where it comes from, the preparation of it, like making meals. People don't even want to cook for themselves anymore. But you think about how detrimental that eventually becomes that we're so disconnected from things we're putting in our body. That
mm,
energetic intention and flow between the two parties, because there is a flow, even if it's just lettuce. Like they
yeah.
talk about, and I've studied this, I'm crazy, but it's okay. I've studied how plants react when you chop them up for your salad and they cry. There is a connection. I have giant pumpkins and I talk to them all the time. Like they feel me, I feel them. Like it's more fluid in our world and more connected to the things that we previously looked at lower levels of life or animals or however you want to class that. I think that's going to become more important, the connection with the things we're putting inside of our body, where it came from, how it was raised, how it was treated. I know that if you're not an avid hunter, you wouldn't know, but in hunting, if you shoot something that is like running away from you, startled and like shaken up, the meat is awful.
Mm.
Really bad. It's not good to eat a deer that, has been that riled up. But to have a meat from an animal that was just grazing and peacefully left this world, it's completely different. So,
By the way, the fact that you're crazy is something I love. I just
no,
wanted to
thank
say
you.
that.
Thank you. I just look at the world very differently, and I'm okay with that.
I think actually, if you weren't crazy, I wouldn't trust you.
That's right. Yes.
And I fully own up to my own craziness. In fact, if the day ever comes where I am judged not crazy, I think I'm done with the life.
Yep. Me too. I mean, it's
Yeah,
way more fun being this way. And
it is.
like I am so grateful to have a connection to the larger world that is around me. It's just
Mhm.
such a beautiful thing and teaches me something every single day. So,
So let's zero in a little bit more on our model that we're starting to lay out very, very broadly here. And we've got a basic structure. It's a side-by-side structure, this nonprofit thing. We've introduced the idea that we can have a different value system from the monetary's value system. We've started to explore what some of the elements of that are, and appreciating what people give in a larger way than the monetary system does, appreciating the human connection element.
mhm.
Um, but I also want to start touching on the sore points, and the number one sore point is transactions.
Yeah.
How do you price? How do you create transactions in an alternate monetary system? And I'm going to say something that is going to sound like a throwaway comment, but I have to say it anyway. And I'll give you a
Mhm.
reason why I have to say it in just a moment. And that is neither one of us know how the pricing is going to work.
No, we are creating it as we go by the seat of our pants.
Yeah.
We just know that there's something else that's needed, and that's how things are born.
And by the way, the monetary system as it currently exists also doesn't know how the pricing is going to work.
Yeah.
Now, that's an odd thing to say in a society where so much of the capitalistic system has been turned into formulas and theorems and measuring systems and so forth, so that you can measure to the slightest fraction of a penny what something is worth and so on and so forth. And yet, no one can tell you in advance what something's going to cost
Yeah.
unless it's something that is readily available everywhere. And then they can only tell you what's going to cost in the next moment. They can't tell you what's going to cost 10 years from now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's also another piece that goes along with that. It's often described as the invisible hand of the monetary system or of the capitalistic system, right? This idea of a market that just kind of behaves in its own way, that has its own controls built in, the supply and demand and that sort of thing. All of that is a collection of ideas on how to handle the fact that we don't know what the pricing is going to be.
Hmm.
That's really what that comes down to. We don't know in advance.
Yeah.
We don't even know how scarcity is going to play out. We do know, we have a pretty good idea that
Yeah.
scarcity is going to be, rated higher, and anything that is common is going to be rated lower. We know that. But even then, we still don't know exactly how it's going to price.
Well, and with this flip with AI, what I've been hearing in different circles is that the things that we value, quote unquote, for the higher paying jobs like lawyers, doctors, accountants, those kinds of things, that those things could potentially, will potentially, depends on who you're talking to, shift to somebody that knows how to use AI to help you to use AI more efficiently, and then they double check its work. And I
Mhm.
mean, and a really great example of this is I've had a couple of different lawsuits that I've been dealing with and stuff like that, and I won't divulge all of the information because they're still in play. But I took the information and was like, okay, I know where my edges are on the information that I know and I understand. And I think that I can pinpoint where, the law was broken, whatever, like contract law, whatever. I think I know that. And I started funneling it into ChatGPT to have a conversation of like, what act code statutes, what laws govern these things so that I can go and read them and interpret them and, go back and forth with ChatGPT, got enough of the information that I was looking for, asked it to build me a synopsis so that I could go to Just Answers, which is like a website where they have different people that you can talk to, like different professionals, and one of them is a lawyer. So I basically put all the information in from ChatGPT and was like, "Hey, how do I answer these questions? Like, just want to make sure that I'm on the right track." And I'm pretty sure he took all the information and that he also used ChatGPT, but he's
Yeah.
a lawyer, so
Yeah.
he's looking at it from his experience.
Right.
He sent me, like, it was ridiculous. He sent me all the different, laws that were broken, or all the different things that were broken, in terms of the contract, and then the how you argue them. Like, built me the entire case. Here you go. Within It was less than 24 hours. It
Mhm.
wasn't a constant conversation either. It was like, hey, here you go. A couple hours later, ask a question. A couple hours later, ask another question. Okay, boom. And then here's all of this information. And I think that's how things are going to change, is that people that are doing work with their hands, electricians, plumbers, things like that, AI can't replace for the most part. In someone's home, your furnace goes out. You need somebody to come and help you. You need a plumber, you need an electrician, they need to actually come to your place of business. They can't do this online. So those things are going to go up in value where traditionally they've been kind of middle of the road. Even janitors, we need somebody to clean. And so that's really funny. We went to the Hutterite colony
Mm.
the other day. We were picking up tin. They make tin and building solutions and, different things or whatever. And it's cheaper to get the tin through them, and you can get any color and whatever. So we go for a truck ride to the colony to go get the tin and go see them, and, whatever, right? And I was just standing beside the truck, and this random dude like walked up to me, but I didn't see him walk up to me. And then he was like, "Hi." And I was like, "Oh, hello." And my husband and the other guy were talking, and whatnot. Anyway, he was just standing beside me. We made some simple conversation, really nice gentleman, whatever. And that he was holding these big bottles of like chemical, what would have been chemical or whatever for the fields. And then he tootled off and we had said, "Oh, what does that guy do?" And he said, "He's got the most important job here at the colony." And we were like, "Oh, what's that?" And he said, "He's the garbage man. This place wouldn't run without him."
Mm,
And I thought, wow, like what a different shift in that most people in society
yeah,
would think that that's such a, a ridiculous job. Nobody cares, who cares about the trash? But they know because this is their community. If somebody doesn't take care of the trash, everything goes downhill.
that's wonderful. Yeah, that's a great example of what this new thinking is, this new money, new wealth, thinking
Yeah.
about what we value differently.
Yeah.
Now, I also want to address the whole idea of pricing from another angle, because one of the things that humans tend to believe about pricing is that pricing assigns very specific values and that those values are fairly universal. So, we all know what's what. I want to make the case that that's not as true as we think it is.
Mm.
And the way I'm going to do it is like this. I'm going to pick a very common commodity. Let's make it iPhones. You mentioned phones. So I'm going to pick the iPhone, right? So iPhones, they're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. Lots of people are iPhone users. Some people are Android users, but I'm going to appeal to the iPhone users for a moment. And let's say you wanted to find out what the used price is for a 2-year-old iPhone of a particular model.
Yeah.
So you go to eBay. That's a good place to go for anything that's used, right?
Yeah.
And you look up that model and you find, I don't know, maybe 100 of them for sale. Here's the odd part. None of them have the same price. They're
Really
all priced differently. They're all
interesting.
they're in a range. They're in a
Yeah.
range, but they're all priced differently. So the question that I would pose is, well, which one's the price? And the answer is, well, which phone are you looking at? But it's the
Yeah.
same phone.
Well, yeah. Which one are you going to pay for?
Well, some people are going to say, well, that's because it's a used phone. I mean, they're different. Some used phones are better taken care of, others aren't. All right, fine.
Sure.
Let's do the same thing with new phones. And Apple, in particular, they're very strict about the way that they price stuff. So chances are you're going to find the same price everywhere, right? Except that you don't always. Some people charge a little bit differently on the iPhones.
Yeah.
Same iPhones,
Yeah. It's
exactly the same phones.
what
How can you have different prices?
I don't know. I look at different things like name something that you could buy for $20.
Not much anymore. No, seriously.
It's true, but just one thing that you could buy for $20, like something that's simple, but $20.
How about a Happy Meal? It's probably less than $20.
A Happy Meal. Okay, we got some potatoes, we got a burger, we got some cheese, right? Okay, and maybe some condiments or whatever, right? I went to the store the other day and for $20, I bought a stand-up fan.
Wow.
Got the blades, got the engine. It like goes up this way or you can tilt it down. It's got the tilt function. It's got the little rolly bar or whatever that you can go to 5 different settings and it will oscillate. And that was $20.
Yeah.
How, with all of those components and the metal, because it is metal, right? Some sort of metal for the
Hmm.
actual cage around the blades and the blades themselves. And then there's an electrical component because it has a cord and it's got some sort of, engine in it, if you will, right? Like there's things in there. How is that $20? And then, a little bit of ground beef, a bun, and some potatoes, also $20,
And
right?
why is it that if you go to buy a similar fan in another place, it's $27?
Eh? Exactly.
What happened?
Same fan.
What happened to the 20?
Yeah, exactly. How is that possible? And then I'll see things like there's these hitch pins kind of things or whatever. It's like a almost like a D ring. It's got a pin this way and then a circle that comes around and you push on the circle. Anyway, I'm not explaining it well. Anyway, my husband showed me a video of them making these things. And it is incredibly dangerous for one. Also very labor intensive. It's all handmade. And these things are like 45 cents.
Mm.
And it's all like melted metal that is put into a, whatever and cut and it's crazy. All of this labor, and I mean, it's probably cheap labor from India or China or like something like that, like people aren't getting paid very much. But how is it that we're paying, 45 cents for that thing where I see seven workers touched it and like almost lost their fingers in the process
Yeah.
and it's worth 45 cents.
Yeah.
Like what?
So all of these are illustrations of how arbitrary pricing is in the capitalistic system. We tend to think that the pricing is kind of fixed, but it's really not. It's very fluid. It's all over the place. It's extremely subjective.
Yeah.
The I mean, iPhones are the ones that I can think of that probably have the tightest range.
Yep.
You're not going to be, you're not going to have phones that are off by more than a few dollars where an iPhone is concerned. They regulate that range pretty carefully the way Apple handles that. But that's rare. There aren't too many products like that. Most of them have wide ranges. That's where the concept of arbitrage comes in. People say arbitrage, what's that? It's actually derived from a French word, and it basically means taking the difference between one and the other and taking that as a profit. How do you do that? Well, if you have something that you can buy at $20 and sell it at $27, you just made a $7 profit.
Mhm.
The exact same item. It was $20 over here, it was $27 over there. And you took the $7. That's arbitrage, which, by the way, is the basis for all of capitalism.
Huh. Interesting. My husband has a friend who's selling a vehicle, and it's just an old, crappy vehicle that's been sitting in our field for a really long time. Anyway, he is a Scottish man from
Mm.
Scotland, and he is very full of pride. Somebody offered him less money, and it offended him, so he told them to fly kite. And then he eventually, in the process of this summer, lowered the price by
Mm.
$1,500. So the guy came back and said, "Hey, I'll give you this price." And he was so offended that he won't. And my husband's like, should I just give my friend the $2,000 that he really wants for this thing and then sell it for 3,000 like this guy is offering and then take the $1,000 and give him half? Because he's just being stubborn at this
Mhm.
point. He's waiting for months to sell this vehicle and will not out of pride. He
Mm.
is upset that the guy
Mhm.
offered him less money and he's delaying his trip. He wants to sell some things and then he wants to go on a trip, right? So he's delaying his trip, spending more money staying located where he is now instead of just saying, screw it. I'll take, whatever, $500 less than the posted price today, but still, $1,500 more than, or $1,000 more than what I'd give it to my buddy for. Just take the
Mhm.
money and go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Arbitrage.
It's another great example. There are, I mean, we could come up with thousands, hundreds of thousands of examples similar to these that
Totally.
all basically have one thing in common. There is no such thing as a fixed pricing system.
Yeah.
There are no fixed prices anywhere. The
No.
closest you can come to a fixed price is to find out what a particular seller or a particular buyer is willing to sell or buy the thing for. That's the closest you're ever going to find.
Yes. And it's so illusionary, even with our house. Going to sit down with the builder, he's like, "Oh, okay, what kind of fireplace do you want? Oh, we want double-sided gas. Oh, okay, great. Go to Napoleon or whatever, the Napoleon store or whatever." He's like, "Don't look at the prices." And we're like, "What do you mean, don't look at the prices?" He's like, "We'll give you our pricing sheet." What do you mean, your pricing sheet? Like, we're going to the store where they have the prices posted. And he's like, "Oh, no, no, we get everything for 50% off." What?
Yeah.
What? Like, I don't understand. How can they sell this for 50% less to you? I mean, I guess maybe they're selling more and that makes sense, but like, so the pricing is really an illusion.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's literally how capitalism can function because of that illusion.
Yeah.
And I want to emphasize this is not a good illusion or a bad illusion. There is no morality attached to this at all. It's just an illusion. And it's an illusion that's based on a number of different factors. One of the best explanations I ever heard of. This came from a very dry economist. Now, most economists are dry, so that's kind of redundant to say a dry economist, but it was a very dry economist.
Yeah.
He was an Austrian, and he laid it out really nicely. What he said was, imagine you had, any number of things, but let's just say 10. You had 10 things, and you were going to decide which ones you value more and which ones you value less. And you would write them down on a list. And then someone else came along and On those same items, they made their own list. And if you compared your lists and you found that you value this cup more than that toothbrush, and he values the toothbrush more than the cup, you have a basis for a trade.
Hmm.
That is one of the best explanations of pricing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Because now it's not about an amount, it's about a relative value system.
Hmm.
And if your value system and the other person's value system interact in a certain way where he values this more and you value that more,
Hmm.
you got a basis for a trade.
It's that simple.
That's capitalism, but it's not just capitalism. That's the point.
Yeah.
It's any value system. Any system of value that has that kind of element going on is going to provide a way to do transactions. So, how
Hmm.
are transactions going to work on our own system? I don't know, but it's going to be something like that.
Hmm.
That's the kind of thing that's going to happen.
Hmm.
And when you look at it that way, that's when you begin to realize it's almost like your brain opens up and you
Hmm.
start to realize, oh, it's not locked in the way I thought it was.
That's right.
It's not so restrictive like I thought it was. I mean, that's
Hmm.
something you regularly deal with as a financial planner. You're dealing with people on their financial issues, right? And,
Yeah.
and there are many things that they're interested in. You've actually numerous times made the comment that the one thing they want to know more than anything else is where the market is going. But
Yeah.
literally, what you're trying to solve for them all the time is how can you get the most value for whatever it is that you're saving or that you're investing, or
Yeah.
even how much are you saving or investing. That's literally what your whole business is all about, helping
Yeah.
people to save money and invest it and provide for whatever it is they're trying to provide for.
Yeah.
That's what a financial planner does,
Yeah. That's
right?
right. Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
have you ever had a conversation with a client or a potential client where there was absolutely no disagreement about what something would be worth?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that people have no context of what it'll be worth in the future.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you add some fancy calculators to it and say, okay, this is what it's going to grow by. The rule of 72. We were talking about that.
right.
Your interest rate into 72 is the amount of time it'll take to double your investment.
Yeah.
So most people have no concept of that until you show them that. And they're like, oh, I didn't realize that my $100 a month, which feels very insignificant, would be so significant later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are literally in the business of helping people to see their values in a different way.
And align their money with their values, because I think a lot of
Mhm.
people get stuck chasing, the Joneses, not keeping up with them. And the Kardashians. We'll add them to the list too, right? Everybody wants to keep up with the Kardashians. So you know, it's it's really interesting because it's very rare that people have these conversations outside, not I shouldn't say nobody does it, but what I find is that when I bring two people together, a husband and a wife, or a couple together and say like, what do you want? A lot of times they haven't had that conversation of what's important to them, how they see the world, how they want to move forward in the world. And those things are important because unless you know what's important to you, you can't make a path forward. I don't think. Not one that's going to actually represent what you want and make you happy.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's true.
Yeah.
We try to do these in an hour. We've kind of gone past our hour, so I want to bring it to a close. But I want to touch on one final thought before we bring it to a close.
Yeah.
The final thought ties in to the overall theme we've been playing on today, which is that values can be different.
Hmm.
Valuing systems can be different. There is a lot of value in human connection as well. We've talked about the human connection piece.
Hmm.
I want to tie those together in a way of saying many people believe that in order to change the way economics work, you have to get everybody to change their mind. I'm going to propose that that's not true.
Hmm.
What you really need to do is change your own mind to what you want it to be, and then invite others who have a similar mindset to join you,
That's right.
to invite other people in, so to speak.
Yeah.
So here's the little thought experiment I'm going to propose, and this perhaps becomes the basis for next week's conversation. Imagine we set up this nonprofit organization we've talked about, and let's start with just you and me as members of this nonprofit,
Hmm.
And we both come in with the mindset that says we're both going to value giving slightly more than taking. That ties in also to what we talked about earlier. And then let's say we decide we're going to invite in other people who have a similar mindset. They have a similar value system to ours.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't forced anybody to do anything yet, and we're not going to, and we don't
Nope.
need to because we've just brought in connections to people who have similar values to what we have. We have established the basis for what is euphemistically called our tribe today. That's
Mhm.
our tribe, right? What
Yeah.
happens if you combine your tribe into your nonprofit organization?
I
How
think you
does
have,
that play out? What kind of economy does that create? I propose the idea that it creates an economy that matches the similarity of the value system that you all share.
yeah, definitely. It's just like a compound. If you actually had people physically congregating together, it would match the same value system.
And I propose that that is the basis for an economy.
Yes. I like it. I think it's a better economy, more sustainable economy than what we've got right now.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we've just barely started. We got a long way to go on this, but we got a little bit of a foundation established.
Even Ticker likes it.
Hey there, Tigger.
But
So
we'll tell
Tigger's going to be
Kate to
part of our
say hello.
economy. I love it.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
She's got her own economy.
Yeah.
Snacks.
Yeah, she's good at that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And,
Oh,
and it works very nicely because you value giving her the economy that she likes. So it's a good relationship.
exactly. And I like taking care of her. She's my little buddy.
Yeah. Well, she also takes care of you back. That's part of why.
Yes. Absolutely, she does.
Yeah.
Yeah, in her own ways.
So there's some thoughts for you to take away with you. Hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you all next time here on Money. Want to get your question answered here on the podcast? Just go to moneypodcast.net, fill in the form with either a video or a typed question, and your question may be included on the next episode. Moneypodcast.net. For more on this, listen to the entire podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.